Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome here to another episode of Disgruntled. Today's going to be quick. Yesterday, as we all know, if you don't know, you better figure it out because the government will be coming after you. But yesterday, as most of us know and are aware, was tax day. That's the day you need to have your taxes filed, and then you will be told when and how much you need to pay. Most people pay them, I believe, when they do them. Here's the thing. And yesterday, it was kind of grinding my gears as we read everything that's going on in this country, not only in this country, but abroad as well. And we come up on tax day. It must be paid today. Well, yesterday. But when it's due, it's due. And when and if you don't pay on time, you are then penalized. You are then penalized to the tune of, I think it's like 0.5% a day. Actually, I have it. Let's see if we can take a look here real quick. Okay, so here it is on the screen. Failure to pay amount shown as tax on your return. I took this right from the IRS website. All I did was Google, what happens if I don't pay my taxes? And of course, this was the very first link. The highlighted part is what was highlighted in my Google search when it took me to this page. When I clicked on the link, it took me to this page. So if you do not pay the amount shown as tax you owe on your return, we calculate the failure to pay penalty in this way. The failure to pay penalty is 0.5% of the unpaid taxes for each month or part of a month the tax remains unpaid. The penalty won't exceed 25% of your unpaid taxes. So if you fail to pay on time, you could be charged if you let it go long enough or can't afford to pay it. You will be charged up to 25% of whatever it is you owe. And so stick with me here. I understand that this is kind of I'm going to get to my main point, I promise. If both a failure to pay and a failure to file penalty are applied in the same month, the failure to file penalty will be reduced by the amount of the failure to pay penalty applied in that month. For example, instead of a 5% failure to pay penalty for the month, we would apply a 4.5% failure to file penalty and a 0.5% failure to pay penalty. And now I'm going to preface all this by saying that when it comes to finances and financial stuff and the finance business side of things, I'm a complete boob. I don't understand it. It's like reading Greek to me, and this is why I have to set aside money and plan for paying people to help me out with this thing. Otherwise, I'd be in a whole world of shit at some point in the past or in the future. If you filed your tax return on time as an individual and you have an approved payment plan, the failure to pay penalty is reduced. It's reduced to 0.25% per month, or even a partial month if you during your approved payment plan. If you don't pay your tax in 10 days after getting notice from us of our intent to levy, meaning the IRS, the failure to pay penalty is 1% per month or a partial month. So if you pay on the 18th of the month instead of the 1st, well, then they're going to charge you accordingly. And then finally it says, we apply full monthly charges even if you pay your tax in full before the month ends. So what does that mean to the financial boob like me? Not a lot, other than if I'm a person who has trouble paying bills because either I'm bad with money, which isn't the government's fault, or I can't afford it because inflation is crazy and everything costs so much more, and I got kids to feed or a mortgage to pay or whatever it is, I can't afford to pay extra taxes. And in most cases, not even extra taxes. I just can't afford to pay taxes. And I know that there's all kinds of these programs and there's all kinds of tax law, and I'm sure that there's ways around all that. But on the surface, when a guy gets to thinking about tax day and you know a little bit about what's happening in the world, what's happening in our country in various locations throughout, when you learn about what's happening all over the world and how the U.S. is involved, mostly financially, it becomes a little frustrating. It becomes a little frustrating because here now, if you fail to pay, there's an instant penalty. And sure, like I said, I'm sure that there's some way. I know that you can file an extension of some sort or whatever. But the point is that when I owe money to the government, they hold me accountable. I am responsible for making sure that my bill to them is paid. Just like I'm responsible for making sure that my truck payment is paid, that my mortgage is paid, my cell phone, my internet, all that stuff. And nobody is foreign to that idea. The rub then becomes, what is the government doing for me with all this money that I'm paying? And sure, in the grand scheme of things, as a country, my few $1,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 or $250, whatever it is that any person has to pay, is mere peanuts to what it costs to run a country. But then I think the question then becomes, what's happening? What is happening with all the money that we as Americans are forking out in tax? In this fee and that fee and this charge and that charge. Where is it all going? And maybe that's a rhetorical question. And maybe the answer to that question is, Richard, you probably really don't want to know. And I agree partly with that. Ignorance is bliss. We know that for sure. But some of us just know too much. Some of us have been exposed to too much. Some of us have dug too much into what the goings-ons are. And so that's how these questions come about. And that's how this disdain, if you want to call it that, for government as a whole comes about. Where are my tax dollars going? Because for most of us, most Americans, that money that we pay every year, or the money we chip away from with a payment plan to the government every month, every year, that becomes a pretty heavy burden for people. For many, it's a lot of savings. It's a lot of rainy day fund money. For some people, It's almost their last dollar. And we know that the little part we read is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. But where is it going? And then we start talking about billions of dollars being sent to the Ukraine. We start talking about money that we're throwing away, or not throwing away, but we're throwing at all kinds of different issues. CRT in our schools, this transgender movement that the president has decided to support. There's just so much stuff. Our roads are junk. Here in Minnesota, we have 2 seasons. We have winter, which this last winter was extremely mild, and most of us were pretty thankful for that. We'll take it. And we have construction. And we are getting into full swing of construction season, without a doubt. Our hospitals are understaffed. They're dirty. The VA facilities are understaffed. They're breaking down. They're a lot of them are old. I will say this though about VA facilities. The ones that I've been in that have been newly remodeled or newly built are beautiful. They're putting a lot of money in it, and they're putting a lot of time into them. A lot of time. I want to say that the VA hospital in Minneapolis is either done or just about done, or maybe they're just done with that phase. I guess I don't know. But the parts that they've worked on are pretty nice. But it still begs the question, where is all of our money going? And I guess I don't have a problem having to pay taxes, right? I mean, we all know, and we have, for most of us, all of us, our whole lives, we've had to pay taxes. So it's nothing new to us. It's not foreign. But now more than ever, when there's seemingly so much deception and there's so much upheaval, I think people want to know, what the hell are we doing with all this money? And why are we giving it away? I think Americans are waking up finally. And like, this has nothing to do with like presidential politics. Whether you like President Biden, whether you like Donald Trump, whether you like, Mr. Kennedy, whether you like, who cares? Anybody. I think I read recently that Jesse Ventura is trying to throw his hat in the ring. Boy, won't that get interesting. But that doesn't matter. Because the fact still remains that we're going to have to pay the money. We're going to have to pay for the things that we need, which means we're going to have to pay that tax as well. But I feel like as Americans, we don't get a lot of feedback about where our tax dollars are actually going. I would be willing to bet that if we, as a big, large gaggle of people, let's just say for conversation's sake, we get 50,000 people together and we stage a demonstration on Capitol Hill. And our goal is to find out from our elected officials who work for us, who are paid by the money that we pay in taxes, our goal for this demonstration is to get from these people an itemized list, no matter how short or how long, of what U.S. tax dollars go to pay for. And not some convoluted hidden messages list. A hardcore, no bullshit list. Itemized. I'm guessing it would be a couple hundred reams of paper, if not more. And so I understand that seems ridiculous. And it probably seems far-fetched. But it really makes a person think. When tax day rolls around, and I'm facing all these penalties if I'm broke, for whatever reason, almost instantly. But yet when the federal government owes me money, or owes me something, we're not holding them to the same standard. They're not being held to the same standard as we are. And so to me, it seems kind of effed up because we as American citizens put them there, or at least that's what we're led to believe. Whether that's true or not, well, I think the jury's still out on that one. But the fact of the matter remains that Americans still have less money than they did 5 years ago. The situations in the world are a whole lot more toxic. They have a much larger potential of going nuclear. And when I say go nuclear, I don't mean nuclear weapons. I mean just blow up and make a huge impact on our world. And maybe the whole world, who knows? And at the end of the day, most of us, we get up, we go to work every day, we get our paychecks, we pay our taxes, and we go on with our lives to do the best that we can. With no idea where our hard-earned money is going. And if you ask politicians, you're going to get some super, super vague, blanketed, dumbed-down answer about, well, it takes a lot of money to run a country. We got to pay people. Many Americans depend on their paycheck and work for the government, so we got to make sure that it's funded. And that's true. And, we got to make sure that we have equipment. We got to make sure that we have the right people and organizations and processes in order to ensure, the advancement of our country and blah, 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 whatever they come up with. And for some people, that's an okay answer. And I don't think that much of any of that is actually a lie, if I'm being honest. But I think that there's a lot of fluff in that. And so I guess I don't really know exactly what I'm asking for. But what I'm trying to say is that at this time of the year, there's a lot of people shelling out close to their last dime to ensure that the government doesn't charge them yet more money in penalties. And so maybe the answer is, well, I mean, you know that you have to pay taxes. So, do your due diligence and set some money aside maybe so that when that comes up, it's not as painful. Or maybe you'll have more than you owe set aside. And that's a great strategy, but it's hard to do that when you got a couple kids at home and they need to eat, but yet a gallon of milk has went up $3. Food has gone through the roof. Did you see? Recently I saw on TV, I think it was California, which I wasn't surprised about. Some lady brought her three or four kids to McDonald's for dinner as like a reward or a treat to one of her kids for doing well in sports or something like that, and had to leave because it was too expensive to feed her family of four at McDonald's. We're talking about the place where you can eat till you puke off the dollar menu, or at least you used to be able to. It's really, and so I think what happens in situations like that is taxes or inflation keeps rising, which means everything is more expensive, and these businesses are passing that cost on to their customers. What are they supposed to do? They can't drop the pay of their employees. They can't pay the distributor less. The distributor has to charge more because gas is expensive, fuel's expensive, diesel's expensive. Everything's more expensive. And like I said, maybe I'm way off base because I'm a financial boob. But me as a person on the outside looking in, and I'm not even on the outside because I got to pay taxes too. But just my 30,000-foot view of the whole thing is that it's kind of messed up. It's kind of screwy. And so my hope for all of you is that none of you had to pay it. Everybody's getting something back. I know that that's not true, and that's not going to be the case, but that's my hope. It's certainly not my reality. So if it's not yours, then I share your frustration. But I don't think that it's going to go away, and I assume that there's going to be all kinds of malarkey being thrown at us in the media and everywhere else because we're in a presidential election year. But at the end of the day, the old saying rings true. You are assured two things in this life as a United States citizen: death and taxes. Everything else is all up to you. And it's not unfortunate. It's just the way that it is. My frustration comes with the idea that we pay a bunch of money for the goods and services in which we need, but we don't know exactly where our tax money is going that we give the government by law, but we have no idea what it's paying for. And then when the government owes us money, if you're somebody who's lucky enough to get money back because you have child credits or whatever, they might pay you sometime before June 1st. But it isn't going to be tomorrow, I guarantee you that. Maybe for some it is if you filed in March. It doesn't seem like it's very even for the institution that claims to have our best interest in mind. And so I'll say it again before we get out of here. Like I said, today's going to be just a short little rant. I'm just ranting a little bit because it kind of grinds my gears. I don't remember what I was going to say now. But the point is this. When we are giving away billions of dollars to fund things like a war in Ukraine that we have no business being a part of, and I have a feeling that very soon we will be sending money and or soldiers and or equipment to back Israel. Because that's the president said that we are going to remain loyal to Israel. I guess we can safely assume where all our money is going. But maybe these are questions that we should be asking our elected officials who are going to be out knocking on our doors, sending us text messages, putting on town halls, calling us, asking for our vote. Maybe these are questions like this, that we should be asking these folks. Can you tell me where my tax money goes? And don't tell me some story about how much money it takes to support a whole nation. Because what we do know is that we're spending tax in the Ukraine, we're spending tax taking care of illegal immigrants that don't belong here and that don't qualify to be taken care of by the United States of America, when we have Americans that don't even qualify to be taken care of by the United States of America. Explain that to me. You want my vote? Explain why that makes sense and how that is fair to your constituency or the constituency of the whole country. I'd love to ask Joe Biden that. I'd love to ask Donald Trump that. Sir, where is our tax money going? What am I paying for? And see what kind of creative answers I get. So if any of you ever have the opportunity, anybody that watches this, if you ever have the opportunity to talk to any of your elected officials, whether it be city, county, state, federal, or presidential, ask them, where specifically are my tax dollars going? More specific than, it takes a lot of money to do this thing. What are we paying for? And I'm guessing that you'll get some answers that will be good things that our money is going towards, like law enforcement equipment. Hopefully there's money going to some of these departments in bigger cities that are losing cops at alarming rates to try to incentivize people to join to be good cops. We need that for sure. Hopefully we're putting some money aside to prepare for the invasion that we're experiencing at our southern border. And by the way, are there any problems at our northern border? Never hear about that. If there is, maybe there's not. And some of you are probably saying, well, don't you live in Minnesota? You would know. I'm saying I've never heard of any problem up there. But if a dummy like me is wondering, I guarantee you those smart guys who are getting people across the border down south are thinking about how to do it in the north as well. Are we preparing for that? Are we spending American tax dollars to prepare this country for a catastrophe? Is it out of the question that we someday soon may be fighting off some enemy on our own home soil? Is that possible? And if it is, what is our government doing to prepare for it? If that does happen, it sure would be nice to have $8 to $12 billion to be able to get proper equipment if we need it. Anyway, I've ranted long enough, and I apologize, but I had to get it off my chest. If there's one silver lining about tax day, it means that summer is very close to being here, at least in Minnesota anyway. That means motorcycles and boats, nice weather, golf, bonfires, barbecues. And so even though we're going to be broke as hell, we can be outside. That's free. That's free. We can do that all day long. But at the end of the day, what are we paying for? And where is it all going? And when, if at all, do you think are we going to see our return on investment? Maybe we do see it. I'm just asking the questions. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Sorry this got a little longer than I intended it to, but stick with us. We got more content coming for you down the road. We will be back Thursday evening. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Goodbye.